Hello, Richard Armitage.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm very good. How are you?
Do you know what? It's so interesting to see you with short hair.
I know, that character's pretty hairy, isn't he?
He really has
Head
long
and
hair.
face.
Thorin has just beautiful long locks. Do you miss the long hair?
Do you know what? When I saw that creation that Peter King had made, it freaked me out because I thought, how on earth am I going to fight on a battlefield with that mane of hair? But those guys really know what they're doing. So
was it like clip-in? Because I have like clip-in weave. Is that like that? Or
no,
really?
it's a full wig, and it sort of sits. It sits right on your. I mean, we had this kind of cap on our heads to enlarge our skulls. So I mean, I never touched it. There was someone wrangling it for me, and wind machines everywhere. But it kind of works, and I couldn't play the character without it. I hated going to set halfway through the process without the wig on because I just felt like I couldn't be Thorin without that mane of hair.
So it's like that real method kind of. Actually, I read somewhere that you wanted to keep the boots on as well.
Yeah,
even when you didn't need to. Even when it's a mid-shot, you were like, I need the boots to be
the
Thorin.
Boot. It's true. It just made me walk differently, and they're heavy, so it grounds you, and I couldn't do it without the boots.
So you are very tall, but you played a dwarf. How did that come about?
I got asked to come in and meet Peter to read for a number of characters, one of which was Thorin. The dwarf thing was less of a surprise to me. I always figured he was an older man. So I had all these questions in my head, but what it actually came down to was the idea of him being a disenfranchised king. He'd been kicked out of his kingdom, he'd lived in exile, and he was, attempting to reclaim his throne and for his people. And that was the thing that we all agreed on and that attracted me to the part. And also the fact that he had to be a fearsome warrior on the battlefield. So that was going to be something to tackle. And of course, the height issue was something that he was going to do on the computer, thankfully.
And do you love all the green screen and, all of that kind of side to the acting?
You learn to love it. We were lucky. We got out on location for 10 weeks, so we saw a lot of New Zealand. And there were certain scenes where they simply couldn't build a set that would do what the computer could do. The throne room was a chair in the middle of a green room, and when they showed me the artwork for what it would be finally, I realised it was just simply not possible or safe to try and build that set. So, but yeah, I mean, it certainly makes you use your imagination.
Now, at the beginning of the film, the dwarves plan to get the Hobbit Bilbo Baggins with them on their mission. But Thorin, should I say, not a massive fan of Bilbo at the beginning. Why do you think that's how it was?
I think Thorin's intention was to take Erebor back by force. I think he had ideas of raising a big army, and he ends up with 13 other dwarves who are, they're good fighters, they're fearsome on the battlefield, but it's the chances of them sort of taking it by force are slim. And then Gandalf decides that Bilbo Baggins is going to come along as a burglar, and this little chap, this halfling, has never seen any action on a battlefield, and to Thorin he's possibly a liability, someone that he'd need to protect and that could actually bring down the quest. So it's not to his taste at all that he has to come along. The
Hobbit, of course, started off as kind of like a children's book. And we all know The Lord of the Rings is 3 films. But Peter Jackson has managed to make 3 films out of The Hobbit, which is quite a short book. Yeah. Do you think he kind of rinsed it a bit, or do you think it was justified?
Well, if at the beginning, when we'd gone in, they'd said we were making 3 films, I probably would have been sceptical. But the way that he's investigated all the characters, and there are certain paths that Tolkien addresses, but he doesn't necessarily tread. Peter's treading them, and he also has all of the material from the appendices from Lord of the Rings to draw on as well. And I think the idea of him creating a cinematic event, which isn't to be put on an extended edition, has ended up in 3 films because he wants you to see everything he's shot in the cinema.
But that's great for you, though. It
is great, and it's so great to have this film rolling out over the next 3 years and to be able to go around the world and promote it. And I think you'll find going into the second movie with all these great new characters that are going to come into the story, you want to have spend time with them. You don't want any of those stories to be curtailed.
Now, speaking of appendices and of characters, Tolkien did have a lot of sort of characters and family members. Have you managed to nail down your ancestry as Thorin? Because it's pretty confusing.
It is very confusing. I mean, it was one of the things I tried to do at the beginning, is to look at the Silmarillion, look at Book of Lost Tales, try and find out, where the dwarves came from and where Thorin's line, especially because he's of a royal bloodline, just to figure out where that came from. It is relatively clear, but obviously there are many experts out there that know so much more than I do, but it's an ongoing process, and I'm still digging for it.
Brilliant. And Andy Serkis, aka Gollum, what's he like to work with?
He's brilliant. You know, I'm so. It's such a shame that I wasn't able to work with him as Gollum, because my character never came in contact with him. But you know, he was our second unit director
as well, wasn't he?
Yeah. After we finished working on Gollum, and it was as much fun to go and work on his unit as it was on Peter's. You know, to be directed by an actor who understands Middle-earth and Peter's taste in the way that Andy does, and to be able to have a lot of fun with him was brilliant. It was one of the best parts of the job.
Has the craziness still continued? I know it's the DVD release now, and obviously the film was out, you know, last year. Is it still crazy for you at the moment? Have you still got all the crazed kind of fans?
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, the movie is still in the cinemas, so people can buy the DVD and then go and see it in its all its glory. So, but yeah, I don't think I can sit through movie one again, because I've watched it a number of times, and so now we have to go back to New Zealand and finish shooting movies 2 and 3. I think we've got 10 weeks in the middle of the year, so
wow,
I will never be away from Middle Earth for quite some time.
And have you read all of the books as well?
Yes,
including Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I have.
Nice. And was that because you got the part, or you had already?
I read The Hobbit when I was a kid, and I read Lord of the Rings after The Hobbit because I was just a fan. But when I realised I was going to be in The Hobbit, I went back and sort of dug out the other texts. And it's always nice to have a book that you can't get in the shops. You know, some of Tolkien's stuff is obsolete now, so you have to go searching for it.
And some of it as well is like the best-selling stuff of all time, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like 150-odd million copies. Unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah, The Hobbit has been translated into so many languages. I mean, it's been around since the late 30s, and generations have read it. And I kind of hope that kids that see this film might go pick up the book as well.
Nice, yeah, completely. Now, I want to ask you a question, one final question about you as a teenager, because there are a lot of teenagers listening to One Extra. At 17, you joined the circus, is that right?
I did, yeah.
Tell me about that.
It was at a time when you needed an equity card to get a job, and the only way I could get this equity card was to take this contract. And Budapest have a sort of permanent state circus, so I somehow managed to get a contract for 6 months working in the circus, and I was throwing batons and hula hoops to skateboarders and being part of a mime act. So
that's quite cool. Did you have a tightrope walk or anything?
No, I got 2 Russian acrobats to teach me how to do a backflip, though. So
can you still do it?
No.
Okay, fair enough. Listen, thank you so much.
You're going to ask me to do that on the radio.
Yeah, exactly. I want you to be in character and then backflip. No, I'm kidding. Thank you so much for joining with me.
Oh, it's nice to talk to you.